You know what's an important part of being on a team? Being a teammate.
As an offense, though, I mean, when you guys are only able to score 3 points, the defense only lets up 3 points. I mean, do you feel like you let the defense down at all?
No.
Usually, these high-talent guys get caught off guard when things start to sour and their teammates are suddenly far more honest about how they really feel about them. There are quite a few guys that fall into that category this year, and we have 10 of them for you right here. Starting off with perhaps the most annoying of them all, none other than Mr. Unlimited, Russell Wilson. The Denver Broncos thought that they had catapulted themselves into immediate Super Bowl contention this offseason when they mortgaged the farm by dealing 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and several other picks and players to bring the former Lombardi Trophy winning quarterback into the Mile High City. But things got off to a tumultuous start, with the Broncos losing a 17-16 shocker, at least at the time, to Wilson's former team, the Seattle Seahawks. And though Denver did rally to take its next 2 games, it did so in underwhelming fashion, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, totaling 27 points in the 2 wins. With each passing week, it's only gotten worse and worse for Wilson in the Broncos offense. I mean, they are in the cellar of the AFC West while averaging under 15 points per game through the first 14 weeks, which, safe to say, has infuriated some of his teammates, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, because the Broncos have had one of the best defenses in the league this season, and even with just a competent offense, they could easily be in serious contention this season. The murmurs of discontent have grown louder as the season's continued, and with each week, it feels like a new story or clip comes out showing just how sick Wilson's teammates are of his poor performance and his holier-than-thou rah-rah act, especially in light of the massive $200 million extension the Broncos gave him after the trade. Check this out. Some of his teammates brushed right past him as he tried to do his weird DAP collection. The failure of the season hasn't helped, but according to NFL Network insider Mike Garafolo, the friction started early. Privately, we were told early on, these guys were looking at Wilson side-eyed when he was doing all kinds of goofy stuff all offseason into training camp. Man, who would have thought grown men weren't too keen on an overpaid wannabe superhero coming in with forced optimism and a slew of corny catchphrases. Wilson isn't the only former Super Bowl winning quarterback having trouble in the locker room. Aaron Rodgers' act, it seems, has grown a bit tired in Green Bay as well. Probably because he's had one of his worst seasons as a pro and really hasn't resembled the version of number 12 that we've been able to set our watches to over the past 15 years. It would be one thing if Rodgers was just struggling on the field, because after all these years of carrying the Packers, his teammates would likely understand a down year, particularly at his age. But he was pretty outspoken early on in the year that he felt it was actually his teammates and not him who weren't delivering the goods. During his appearance on the Pat McAfee show following a 23-21 loss to the Commanders, Rodgers said the following:
"Guys who are making too many mistakes shouldn't be playing. You know, we gotta start cutting some reps. And maybe guys who aren't playing, give them a chance."
Yeah, so unsurprisingly, this started to turn the tide against Rodgers in a young Packers locker room. And as the season has continued, so have his antics. He regularly looks dismayed on the field, and his body language has been pretty negative, leaving plenty of lovely tidbits for his teammates to find on social media and in film study. Speaking of film study, or lack thereof, let's jump out west to Arizona, where Pro Bowl quarterback Kyler Murray is ticking off teammates in his own unique way. Murray has been one of the more exciting QBs to watch since the Cards took him number 1 overall out of the University of Oklahoma a couple years back, but his game is certainly not perfect, and it seems like more of the cracks are starting to show. Rumors have begun to circulate that he's not exactly been the most dedicated to his craft, which is impacting his performance on the field. But Murray, unfortunately, doesn't seem too keen to take any of the responsibility for his performance. After a loss earlier this season, Murray told the press,
"I tell guys all the time, always be like, never, you got to be awake playing with me. Like, I mean, it's, no matter what the play is, I got free reign to do whatever, get into whatever. So when you sleep and you don't think you're getting the ball, it's we can't play like that. Everybody's got to be lit up, in the game, locked in, and we just got to be better, and we will be. But again, it's frustrating when you lose. you feel like you could have played better, could be in the game.
Yeah, no, I'm sure his teammates loved that. It's comments like these that have drawn shots from former teammates like Patrick Peterson.
Kyler Murray don't care about nobody but Kyler Murray. That's just a matter of the fact.
They've reiterated that in many ways, what Kyler Murray has always been about is one thing, and that is Kyler Murray.
Me.
Similar things have been said about Carson Wentz over the years. In fact, even he himself has admitted that he's not always been the best teammate. And though he thanks God for the experiences and says that he's grown as a person, I think that some of his new teammates down in Washington, D.C. might be thinking differently. In fact, it's not too dissimilar to what's played out with Wilson in Denver. It wasn't quite the haul that Denver gave up, but Washington invested draft capital and money in the controversial quarterback, and thrust him into a locker room that has always seemed to want Taylor Heineke leading the charge. Wentz went out with an injury in mid-October, and at this point, it seems like his time as a commander, and really as a starting quarterback in the NFL, may now be over. But still, can't be fun for the Commanders players who actually are contributing on the field to walk around the locker room and see Wentz collecting nearly $30 million this year. Last but certainly not least on this installment of big-name quarterbacks irking their teammates, we head to the Meadowlands, where things have gotten ugly for the Jets' former second overall pick, Zach Wilson. During his 2 seasons in the NFL, Wilson has really struggled to put it together on the field. He's completed just over 55% of his passes as a pro, and thrown 3 more interceptions than he has touchdowns. But it doesn't seem like these struggles have humbled him whatsoever, much to the chagrin of his teammates. This has become a more prominent storyline in 2022 because in a shocking turn of events, the Jets actually have a good team. Not only is their defense nasty, they have done very well to piece together more than enough playmakers to play some good offensive football too. The only problem? Well, Wilson completely sputtered and really has not taken that next step forward at all. There have been whispers about his relationship with his teammates since he came to town, but this year it has all really bubbled up to the surface. I mean, it got so bad that wide receiver Elijah Moore tried to start a movement online to get himself slotted in at QB instead, which, in fairness, is a little bit of the pot calling the kettle black because Moore hasn't done much to make himself a popular figure within the Jets locker room this year either. Despite the team thriving, Moore routinely complained on social media about his usage and has often been found moping around the sidelines.
Describe your chemistry with Zach on the field.
Probably, I don't even know. I couldn't even tell you. I don't get the ball. I don't know.
In fact, it's gotten so bad that the Jets had to make Moore a healthy scratch at one point. And star cornerback Sauce Gardner took to Twitter to release a cryptic message of his own, which seemingly targeted Moore's selfish behavior. And yeah, I can't really blame him for that. No one wants to see a guy complain when the team is winning. Anyways, back to Wilson. Time will tell if he can ever win it or his teammates' respect back, but the early prognosis isn't great. It isn't only the signal callers who have a tendency to get under teammates' skin. We've seen a couple of wide receivers do the very same thing this year. The Houston Texans' Brandon Cooks and the New Orleans Saints' Michael Thomas. Cooks has traditionally been an under-the-radar kind of guy, especially by star wide receiver standards. But this season in Houston has created some strife between him and the organization, and more importantly, with his teammates. As the seasons progressed, Cooks grew increasingly frustrated with the team's performance and requested to be traded ahead of the deadline. Much to his dismay, Houston opted not to deal the 29-year-old receiver. And while I would like to have some sympathy for Cooks, I can't help but wonder what he was thinking signing a 2-year extension with the Texans ahead of this season. I mean, he couldn't possibly have been under the delusion that Houston was going to put a good team out on the field this year, particularly not with all the organizational chaos swirling around the Deshaun Watson scandal and trade, plus, Jack Easterby's departure. If you ask me, Cooks wanted his cake, inking a large extension, and to eat it too, by pressuring the team to deal him already. And when he didn't get his way, he ghosted the team, even missing a game as a result, which in turn led to him being stripped of his captaincy, sending quite a ripple through the Texas locker room. Down in NOLA, Michael Thomas has never had the best reputation when it comes to getting along with his teammates. After all, he did have the infamous fight with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson in practice a couple of years back that ended with Thomas socking Gardner-Johnson in the face. That incident came shortly after he'd signed that massive extension, and in the time since, he hasn't really done much to win his teammates back over. With his latest trip to the IR looking like it will end his season, Thomas will have missed around 40 games over the last 3 years, all the while firing off takes online and acting like he's still one of the best receivers in the game. So yeah, I think I can understand why his teammates are growing tired of his act. In fact, it's kind of like what we've seen happen with some other vets, whose talk has grown weary amongst their teammates as their play has declined throughout the years. Cough, cough, I'm looking at you, Marcus Peters. The former All-Pro cornerback has bounced around a bit during his career. Not for his lack of talent, but more because of his edgy playing style and personality, both of which make it challenging for him to mesh with his teammates long-term. Now with the Ravens, it looked like Peters had found himself a little bit of stability, but as it turns out, that was largely just the result of him missing all of last season with an injury. Now that he is back in action, well, he's right back into the mix, getting into it with his teammates and even the team's head coach, John Harbaugh. Peters literally had to be held back during a contentious sideline argument during a loss to the Bills earlier this season. Have to think that act is wearing a bit thin on the coaches and players alike. Last but not least, we have a guy who may very well be the most reviled figure in the NFL at this point, Eli Apple. He's made quite a few enemies over the years, both on opposing teams, like Tyreek Hill, and people on his own team as well. In fact, Apple has had serious issues with his teammates dating all the way back to his early years in the league with the Giants. And in the time since, multiple teammates have spoken out about his selfish ways. You can tell that some of his Bengals teammates are starting to feel that same way too, because none of them really bothered to rush to his defense when Hill chirped him, or when the entire NFL appeared to celebrate the fact that Apple surrendered the game-winning touchdown in last year's Super Bowl. I mean, if anyone in Cincy really liked him, you'd think that maybe they would have spoken up for their teammate. But which NFL player do you think is the most hated among his own teammates? Was there anyone that we missed? Let us know in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.